What is up, everybody? Ethan Newberry here for another Ginger Runner Live. A very exciting episode. It's number 80. Been doing this for a while. Thank you for being patient, chat room. We had some tech to work out because my guest tonight is actually on duty. He's working right now. So I will say up front, he is an emergency responder, and if he gets a call, he's got to go. That's how this is going to work, because the last thing I want to do is tell an emergency responder not to respond to the call because he's doing a live show. I'm really excited to have him on the show. I have not had him yet. He's an incredibly awesome dude. I've run with him a little bit. He's an incredible ultra runner, but also the race director for the 100-mile race that I'm running this Saturday. It's Mr. Rich White, the race director for Cascade Crest 100. I'm super excited. Sit back, relax, grab your adult or child libations, and get ready to enjoy a Ginger Runner Live. Let's do it. Ginger Runner. Yay! It's a different background than most episodes because I'm in Seattle. It's been a really fun last couple of days because I traveled from LA up to Seattle and then went to Squamish, British Columbia to help host the film festival and then spectate and enjoy the Squamish 50, the Squamish 50K, and the Squamish 23K. It was awesome to be back up there. Last year, many of you have seen the film, the Squamish 50/50 film, documenting my journey traveling 82 miles through gnarly technical trails in Squamish. And a lot of you seem to be inspired enough to actually sign up and go to the races and race them. Many even signed up for the Squamish 50/50 as their very first ultra, which is crazy. And it was so incredible to see so many people finish those races with big smiles on their faces, and it was really, really awesome. Really amazing weekend. And I know we have Gary Robbins, his wife Linda, their baby Reed, and Gary's parents watching right now. So a big shout out to them for putting on what has to be the best Squamish 50 yet. It was absolutely incredible. Big shout out to Jeff too, co-race director. Tonight's guest is the race director for Cascade Crest 100, and I want to talk to him all about the race. Kind of its history, why people refer to it as an old school 100. It is going to be my first 100-mile race. It is this Saturday. That is why I'm in Seattle. I am terrified, nervous, but now I'm actually like embracing the fact that I'm going to be running 100 miles through the mountains just over yonder. So my guest tonight, Mr. Rich White. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'll give you the round of applause.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're an emergency responder, so you are on duty, right?
I am, yes.
Okay, so if you get a call,
hopefully I don't need to, but I might need to run at any given point, which okay. I'll hopefully give you some warning for.
Will we hear an alarm or anything?
Yeah, you would.
Okay, so if you need to go. I can easily talk to myself for an hour. I do it all the time. It's no big deal. So I'm really excited about this weekend, Rich. Let's talk a little bit about Cascade Crest 100. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we get to that, I wanted to talk a bit about the fires. So before I came up here, I was kind of researching forest conditions, weather conditions, and stuff like that. Apparently, there are some pretty nasty fires up here in the mountains. Can you kind of help set the stage of what's been going on here over the last week, because it's fairly recent that stuff is starting to go down?
Yeah, the whole like most of the Mountain West, we've just had a really, really mild or dry winter, and then early summer it's just been incredibly dry, and which means a worse fire season. And there are some pretty bad or horrible fires over in the North Cascades, namely the Chelan complex is one that's about 70 miles north that just encompasses a bunch of fires around Lake Chelan, the Twisp area, the Okanagan County. And then there's also a bunch of smaller fires throughout central and eastern Washington. Also one about 70 miles south of the course. There's a decent fire down on believe it's the west side of Mount Adams. So as far as impact on the course, it's not fires themselves, but smoke conditions or air quality has been our concern that we've been tracking pretty closely over the last week or so.
It's there's been a number of stories, especially recently. There was a tragedy last week with some firefighters out here in Washington, and I can't imagine how difficult the work is. I know that you're also a firefighter. Have you ever worked on forest fires or been on the front line out here in the Northwest or elsewhere dealing with this kind of stuff?
I'll go on smaller brush fires that local to my district, but I haven't been on any larger wildland fire deployments. We do have people, or some of my coworkers that are specially trained wildland firefighters, have been deployed over to central and eastern Washington to help the efforts. But I am not specifically a wildland firefighter.
But I mean, how many hours are these guys working out there? I imagine the conditions are not ideal.
No, it's incredibly tough work. It's a minimum of 12 to 16 plus hour days, and they're typically deployed for 2 weeks at a time. My lieutenant is most likely going to get deployed in the next couple of days, and again, that's a 2-week deployment, working anywhere from 12 to 16 plus hour days, and these aren't easy shifts. I mean, they're out doing pretty hard work every day and away from their families for that 2 weeks and under pretty severe conditions. So it's pretty bad right now in parts of the state, and we obviously want to be sensitive to what's going on. But specific to our event, the conditions are still favorable.
Yeah, that's. I know that you've sent out emails and you've posted in the race Facebook page and stuff like that, that conditions are still good to go. I can't help it but think about the fires and those who were fighting them, and met one at the airport randomly on Friday when I flew up, and it sounds like they're working hard. And I want to put a link in the description. We were just Rich and I were talking before the show about the best link to post to help support these guys and girls, because it's some brutal conditions. I mean, you're essentially fighting fire in woods, and it's the winds are super high and it's extremely dangerous right now. So I will be putting a link in the description of this video to where you can help these men and women that are fighting the fires and doing some pretty amazing work, saving communities and people as well. So let's talk a bit about this race, Rich, that about 200 people are going to be partaking in on Saturday. Give me a little bit of the history of Cascade Crest.
So we've got, we shoot for right around 160 entrants. We've had a couple fall off, so we're just under that. Okay. That is by choice. We want to keep it small. You had mentioned that old school feel. Something that we like to, we want it to be smaller and sort of have that nice local feel and not have people too crowded out on the trails. As far as the history, we're in our 17th year. This is my 3rd year as the race director. 99 was its first year. I actually talked with the founder and initial race director, Randy Gerke, earlier today just to bone up on my Cascade Crest history. Back in 98, it's called the Cascade Crest Classic. People ask where the classic comes from. The Cascade Crest Trail is the initial or the original name for the trail through the Cascade Crest, which is now, much of it is now the Pacific Crest Trail. The Pacific Crest Trail, when it was created, I believe it was, so it's the Cascade Crest Trail, which existed in Washington. The Skyline, I believe it's the Skyline Trail, was the length of Oregon, and then 3 or 4 different long trails throughout the spine of the mountains of California. These were all created, plus linked up with some other new trails to create the Pacific Crest Trail. So that's where the Cascade Crest comes from. Initially, it was in 98. It was a fat ass run from Stevens to Snoqualmie, 70-mile run. And then in 99, it was lengthened to a 100-mile loop and started real small, a couple dozen people out of the Parkside Cafe in Easton, which you might have had the pleasure of dining in, where we met up a few weeks ago. And it does claim to be the finest dining in Easton, Washington.
I lived in Washington State for 25 years in Seattle, and I had never been to Easton until I went with Rich a couple of weeks ago. Easton is a gem. It is a gem of a thumbprint of a city. It's tiny, and you said it's that restaurant where it starts was the best eats in Easton. Is that what you said?
I believe it claims to be the finest dining
Finest
in
dining. Because it's the
finest
only
dining in
dining, I
Easton.
think. It's like one of
Yeah,
those
other
things.
than the Easton Saloon, I can't think of. Oh, there's a place down the road as well for good burgers and milkshakes. But yeah, it's great. But it was small enough that the headquarters and start finish, the race started and finished right there at the Parkside Cafe. And after a few years, it caught on and got bigger and bigger, and eventually grew out of the Parkside. And now, we've got a great relationship with the Easton Volunteer Fire Department.
Yeah.
That is where we're based out of, is the fire station, start finish. And they really drive a lot of what's going on with just getting us organized, allowing us to use, displace their fire apparatus for a few days and just use their fire station as our race headquarters, and really have a great relationship with them. And we're happy to support them as much as, hopefully as much as they support us.
For
But
sure.
yeah, the Randy Gerke, he now lives in Idaho. He was the race director, founded the race and race director for, I believe, the first 6 or 7 years. And then shout out to Charlie Chrisman as well, who was the previous race director before me, and was the RD for 7 years before I took it over, just over, I guess, about 3 years ago. This is my 3rd year.
See, I really like that this race started as a fat ass race where it's probably just a group of runners got together. And I can imagine, I mean, I've seen about 50 to 60% of the trails, and they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. I can just picture like this group of runners. Let's do 70 miles between Stevens and Snoqualmie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty common long run, fast pack or really long run for some ultra runners around here. Yeah, it's all PCT, Lincoln, linking Stevens Pass to Snoqualmie Pass. And yeah, we do not use any of that for the course. We would love to, but due to Alpine Lakes Wilderness, that will not be the case ever. But yeah, that would be really awesome to link up that part north of Snoqualmie as part of our course. But unless Congress changes their mind, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Right, because Congress basically has a law that states you can't use wilderness for any sanctioned race activity, right?
Yeah, no competitive events, and generally speaking, that's what's no organized competitive events, and also they've got, they limit group sizes to 12, and rightfully so. I mean, it's great to have wilderness where we can go and get away from masses of people. So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it sure would be awesome and a whole lot tougher as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, what I think is still crazy is this race touches trails that, like the No Name Ridge, the last 20 miles are just incredible, and they feel like they haven't been touched by another human in weeks. You're seeing footprints, but you don't know if they're from earlier that day or from 6 weeks ago. You just don't know. It's absolutely insanely beautiful. In the chat room, Gary Robbins is talking about the milkshakes. The milkshakes, and I heard about this weekend, but I didn't know about it. What is the history of milkshakes with this race?
It's always there's a few different spots in Easton to enjoy a fine milkshake during the weekend, and yeah, it's usually hot, and so it's just quite refreshing. Huckleberry is usually the flavor of the season, and that's sort of one of my jokes is I at least need enough volunteers that one person can, go get milkshakes at any given moment, because otherwise everything ceases. So yeah, the milkshakes are great in Easton.
Do the runners get to partake in some of these, or do they have to be finishers?
Yeah, when they finish, unless they want to take a slight diversion around mile 98 and a half, they're welcome to go straight before they cross the highway and go pick up a milkshake. I'm fine with that. They can add miles if they want. But yeah, we tend to have some smoothies, popsicles, other refreshments out on the course, but specifically milkshakes, not yet.
Previous guest on Ginger Runner Live, I think it was Josh Behringer who I was talking to this weekend, and was guest last week, was telling me that he came into an aid station at one point and they had a smoothie machine. I mean, this is one of the more remote aid stations where there isn't road access, and they had a smoothie, like a blender or something, rigged up out there blending smoothies for runners, which I can't wait. I hope that still might exist.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away, but you'll most likely run into a smoothie at one of our tougher to get to aid stations.
That's incredible.
And yeah, that's a testament to how awesome our aid station captains and aid station workers are. I mean, they really, that's, we can get to that, but that's really what makes Cascade the event that it is. It's just amazing community support and folks that aid station captains that have they inherit, I shouldn't say inherit, but they've had these aid stations for a decade or more, and they really make it theirs, and really adds to the personality and fun of the event. It's really just a great party out there, as you'll see this weekend.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the volunteers and the aid stations and kind of the history with those, because I think there's a good deal to talk about with that, and I definitely want to get to that. So, but first, let's talk about the course in general, kind of how it changes throughout the 100 miles, sort of the trails that link up, and why it was pieced together in a way that it is now.
Are you looking for back to the history of how it was created, or you just want the quick preview of the course?
We can do the quick preview, because I know it jumps from PCT to some of the more exciting aspects that make this race different.
Yeah, so starting from the Easton Fire Station, we've got a couple miles through neighborhoods on flat, either rail trail or roads to get to some Jeep trail. Pretty rough Jeep trail, start climbing up towards Goat Peak, and pretty quickly.
3 miles or something?
The climb starts probably 2 miles in. You're starting to climb, but doesn't really start climbing in earnest for another mile or so. And there'll be no doubt when that climb starts. Pretty good grind up to Goat Peak, which is our first aid station, more of just a water stop. From there up to the top of Goat Peak, across to Coal Butte. I hold no grudges against dirt bikers, because a lot of this trail, other than us using it, if it wasn't for dirt bikers, it probably wouldn't still exist, and it can be pretty rough shape at times. But it's pretty rough trail, pretty rough footing, pretty steep, and that first 10 miles over to Coal Butte Aid Station is in pretty rough trail across the ridge, but beautiful. I mean, you're starting to get views down to Mount Rainier, Blowout Mountain. You'll have a couple miles of forest road dropping down to off one ridge and back up to the other to Blowout Mountain Aid Station, and then it's a few miles to the PCT. And then we got just over 30 miles of Pacific Crest Trail, which anybody that's run it knows that it's amazing. It's amazing track of trail that we've got on the West Coast. There's definitely the ups and downs, but it's made to be stock friendly. So you're never going to have any really horrible climbs. They're all going to be fairly well graded. And you're going to get some decent views off to, as I said, Mount Rainier to the south, to the No Name Ridge and the Needles that you'll be on about 50 or 60 miles later as well, in that Alpine Lakes Wilderness, which is just gorgeous. But after about 30 miles of PCT, you're going to drop off the ridge to hook up with what is affectionately known as the rope section.
Which I didn't find out about this rope section until I was in a panic one night reading race reports from previous years, and someone just casually dropped, and then we hit the rope section, which you never know. You never know. If it's a Gary Robbins race, the rope section will most likely kill you if you slip. So I have no idea what to expect here. I'm a little terrified, Rich.
You shouldn't be too terrified, but it's really a great connector to get from when Randy was creating the course. He had this loop lined up, but he had to figure out how to. The rope section connects us from the Pacific Crest Trail down to the John Wayne Trail, which John Wayne Trail is we're on for about 2.5, 3 miles, going through the 2.3-mile Snoqualmie Tunnel, which is a very unique and awesome feature of our course, is going through almost a 2.5-mile railroad tunnel. Decommissioned, of course. You won't be trying to squeeze through there with any trains. But how to connect those, and they just went backwards and started beating their way up the hill, and to find it's an old logging skid road, and that has it's now more of a trail, but much of the Cascade Crest course, there's a couple sections in particular, whether it's that rope section or the connector to the Trail from Hell. These were essentially created by us over the years that are now more of an established trail, but they were definitely more of bushwhacks at the time. It is very steep getting down to the John Wayne Trail, so we give ropes to the runners for their assistance. If it's wet, we have some forecasted showers for this weekend, which would be a huge relief to the dry conditions, but it might make the descent down the rope section a little bit more fun.
I remember you specifically saying the ropes are fine. Like, I mean, you don't even need ropes, especially if it's dry. If it's wet, well, it won't be wet. I think is what your response was. And it's going to be wet, like showers.
We'll see how that goes. I mean, a month ago, it's like, yeah, that's not going to be wet. Everything's just so dry. And I think what I was telling you as well was it's very steep, but you don't necessarily need the ropes. And I'm saying this with the context of in the daylight on fresh legs. I've been up that section, up and down it many times, and you don't necessarily need the ropes, but when you're tired and it's dark, and now when it's wet, I think it'll come in handy. But just be cautious. A lot of people, their races have ended there because of bad slips and tweak something or slide down and bruise their side, and it happens. But that's part of the fun.
Yeah, so. I'm not concerned in the sense that I know when I get to it, I'll be able to do whatever I need to do to get down it. It's always fun, especially since that is the gateway into the tunnel, which is, I think, something super unique about this race. I know you talked about it. How 2.5 or 3 miles is that?
2.3. We're on the John Wayne Trail, which is railroad bed for about 3 miles, but 2.3 of that is through the Snoqualmie Tunnel. And unless you're really fast, it will be in the dark. I think usually like maybe the top 10 folks are in daylight, so they might get a light at the end of the tunnel, but everybody needs a headlamp because it's just that dark inside the tunnel. You're at its center point, you've got more than a mile either way, so it's very dark. There's no lights in there. And it's a little bit more eerie, I think, for those that are in an even darker place and can feel enclosed. And it's a pretty unique fun. At one of our board meetings a year or two ago, someone jokingly brought up, do we need to put trail, course markers in the tunnel? And I just sort of laughed. I'm like, no, if you cannot find your way, it's one way. But sure enough, one of my friends that I didn't know it was him at the time, there was a story of a guy, whether he stopped to pee or just eat something, totally become disoriented and spent over an hour and a half in the tunnel trying to figure out which way to go. So joking aside, you probably want to, scratch something in the dirt before you look down and turn around or anything, because you don't want to lose too much time trying to make your way out of a tunnel. And it's not tight, just so people realize this is a old railroad tunnel. So, you've got at least 15, 20 foot overhead. It's about 8 feet wide, at least 8 feet wide. So it's not like something where you're going to be crawling through. It's something you're still running, and you can run fast if you've got the wheels for it.
Yeah. The fact that people will be inside an enclosed space for anywhere from 20 to 30 to apparently an hour, I think it's such an interesting and cool element to throw in literally the middle of a 100-mile race. Gary was mentioning in the chat room, Gary Robbins is again watching live, race director of Squamish 50, who knows Rich because he's run not only Cascade Crest with Rich as the race director, but they have run each other's races. And Gary placed third last year, I believe, and with an incredible time. So Gary can speak to this course fairly confidently. But earlier he was saying that you are the king of sarcasm, or rather understatement, which I think is fairly accurate, because I think you might be understating the ropes a little bit, but we'll see. I haven't seen him in person, so we'll see.
Just for the record, before Gary makes the correction, I've run most of Gary's course, most of it.
50K, 50 miler.
50 miler. I had a great 25-mile day, that's for sure. But yeah, just for the record, I've run most of Gary's course. So.
Oh, and it's Gary's in the chat room, but it's actually Linda in control of his account. Gary's cleaning up the Squamish 50. That's great. He's out there running and picking up the markings and stuff like that. Okay, so one really unique feature about this race as well. I have been on it. I've seen it, and it is pretty gnarly. I will actually be posting my video of it this week because I got some preview of it about a month and a half. No, probably closer to 2 months ago. That is a section of trails lovingly called the Trail from Hell. I believe this is now changed to Trail from Heck. I'll let Rich talk a little bit about that. Explain the Trail from Hell and kind of its legend.
So just to get there, to follow along our course preview, you go through the tunnel, and then you're going to head on. You're going to be on Fire Road for a total of about 15 miles going up over Cachilas Ridge. And then you'll end up at Cochise Lake Aid Station. Just to plug, all of our aid stations are amazing, known for just having, good, real solid food throughout the night. Not just your ultra fare, but something substantial to give you. But anyways, from Cochise Lake Aid Station is sort of the entry to the Trail from Hell, or Heck, depending on your perspective. That's because back in the day, so I ran the race, just part of my history with the course. I ran it in 07. It was my first 100, and it was still a little bit more of a bushwhack. But even before that, I mean, the connector to get to the Little Cochise Trail didn't exist. So there was a lot of bushwhacking. The trail along the Little Cochise Trail isn't known for having the best maintenance, although now, due to some of our amazing runners and volunteers that have sort of adopted that trail, it is cleared out very well every year. But I mean, people used to be climbing over and under incredibly big blowdowns. So as far as that Trail from Hell, it really was a bushwhack, and then a lot rougher as far as climbing over and under. A lot of big blowdown. So some people jokingly shake their fist at. I'll shout out Trevor. You know who you are. They're saying, you got to drop some more trees because it's getting too easy. And that's where the Trail from Heck has come from, is because, and as you know you ran it a month or so ago. On a map, you'd think, you got this trail right next to the lake. There's not going to be a whole lot of elevation gain, but you are going up or down pretty steep, 50 to 350 feet at a time, just up and down along the side of the lake, and unless you're, really fast. And I know Gary had a great split on it last year, but we'll, for the most of us, it's a grind, and it can be pretty tough, but it's fun.
If you didn't know that it was there, and like no one told you there's this section, the course profile has big bumps, big mountains that you're climbing, 4,000-foot climbs, and etc. But the Trail from Hell is just this little flat line where you're like, it looks like it might be running along a road or along the lakeside. But you get on it, and you're absolutely right. If you zoom into that section, it's actually like a heart rate or something, because it's just peaks. It's crazy. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a little gnarly in there.
Yeah, definitely. It's it can definitely be pretty challenging for folks, and but again, one of those features that makes our course pretty awesome and unique. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and it'll look a little bit different to you this weekend than it did last month.
I mean, yeah, especially if it's raining. Hopefully, all of it's still there, and it's not washed away.
There's that one spot I think you're referring to where I haven't there's some stuff from the runner's manual that I haven't changed because Charlie, the previous race director, just has a great way with words, and there is one spot on the trail from hell that in the manual he said, as far as it's not littering, the only person known to have fallen into the lake was, a goo wrapper fell out of his pack prior to. So, there's a pretty good washout at one point that's been worked on. It's not a true safety concern, but you might want to take a little extra care with your tired legs and brain to go a little slower at that point. So you probably won't fall into the lake. It's a little dry right now, but you might fall into lake bed because of the lake and water conditions. That lake is a little bit lower than is normal as well.
Yeah, when I was out there training on it, I filmed that section, and I remember going across that it's only 20 feet of trail, but it is a washout, and it's a little sketch. It's a good 50 feet down, maybe a little bit more to the lake. When I was running it, it had lake water down below, beautiful lake, Lake Cochise. But I've been told that now that the lake level has gone down because of the drought, it's just rocks at the bottom. So. Yeah, just make sure you I guess.
Yeah, we'll throw some pillows on there before the race, or some dirt. We'll cover it with dirt. How's that?
It'll get washed away. So yeah, I mean that section is about 6 miles, and it takes you kind of to the I guess the last big climb, sort of.
Yep, the last third of the course, it's pretty tough. We did tweak the cutoffs a little bit last year to try to hurry people through. Not hurry them, but try to push them to get through Lake Cochise, because really, when you leave that aid station, you have a little bit more than 50K to go, and it's a really hard 50K. So we want people to have a little bit of a gut check there. It's hard to get people out of there. It's minimal access, not a whole lot of crew access. Some long drives in for our aid stations. And so we really want people to be mindful of really how they're feeling before they leave Cochise. And if they are sort of on the bubble of cutoff, to just realize that stuff's about to get real. So, from the end of Trail from Hell, you'll hit Mineral Creek Aid Station. Another great aid station, not to go too in depth with all of them, but a local running group that has run that one for quite a few years now. And I can name them all if you want, but we'll wait to see how much time we have at the end.
Yeah.
But you've got about a 7-mile climb up Forest Road to get to No Name Ridge. And that climb can be pretty hot. It's runnable for the real freaks of the field, but most people are hiking at that point. It's I want to say about a 3,000-foot climb. And so at mile 70, that tends to be, mile 70, 75, that can be a little bit wearing on folks. And if it's a hot day, it can be really hot on that section. But No Name Ridge, amazing aid station, huge party up there. But that's the beginning of the Needles. And that No Name Ridge is probably, we have a lot of highlights, but that's one of them. It's an awesome section, but it includes the cardiac needles, and you realize why they're called that. But that's probably one of the more fun sections of our course is that last from No Name all the way over Thorpe, which is our high peak or high point, all the way to a little past French Cabin aid station.
Great question too. I'm gonna make sure those who are watching live, you can ask questions of Rich as he's kind of going through the course. Feel free to drop in the chat room. We had a good one here that I'll throw at Rich. What is the course like with markings? Is it necessary to know the area or run the route in advance? Could you do it on site without necessarily getting on trail and knowing all the trails? How are the markings, especially up there too on the Needles?
Our course is incredibly well marked. Wendy Wheeler Jacobs is the course coordinator. She coordinates all of our marking and sweeping, and They do a great job. It's I was talking to Randy earlier today, the previous race, or the founder, and that was one thing we do a little bit different now. Is he wanted to be a little bit more of minimal markings, and you probably want to know where you're going. And now, we deal with anything that any race deals with. Weather, wildlife, hooligans. People will mess with um, your markings, but we do a really good job of rechecking stuff. So hopefully that answered the question. I don't recommend it. It is the runner's responsibility to know the course, but you could probably make it just fine following our great course markings. And there's a few key sections. It's a learning experience for everybody, and there's some sections we mark, or intersections, I should say, that are better marked now because of issues in the past, whether it was poor marking or just having issues with folks messing with markings. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, for sure. That was great. So when you pass through the Needles, and I was very lucky, I got to do some training runs on the course in the Needles section, the No Name Ridge through Thorpe Mountain and the Cardiac Needles. Thank you, Rich, for the ride, by the way. I did get a chance to preview that section, and it is breathtaking. It is insanely beautiful. Imagine the most picturesque 6-inch wide piece of single track that runs along a ridge in alpine trees and pops you out into peaks from every once in a while, and it's super steep in some sections, super steep down in others. There's water flow and spring. There's a spring up top too. Like it's incredible, extremely challenging, especially at mile 80 of a race, of a 100-mile race. I'm really excited about this course, and I know that it's going to be a challenging one. There's a reason I chose it as my first 100. Linda in the chat room also mentioned this, and I was going to mention it today too. This was Rich's first 100-mile race, so I think it has a real special connection with you, man, especially now that you're the race director of the race. Why did you make Cascade Crest 100 your first 100?
So I I didn't get into ultra running. I was a trail runner in college. Went to college at Western State College in Colorado. Got into trail running, some shorter trail races, but didn't do ultras until I moved up to Washington, which was in 04. Started as a rec major at Western, and which is funny, it gets everybody there before they, it's a lot of folks that just want to hang out in the Rocky Mountains. But hard rock already had a appeal to me. One of my recreation classes actually did a paper on, this crazy 100-mile event. And so when I moved up to Washington, Cascade Crest was, or is, there's other hundreds that have started in Washington, great events, but Cascade Crest really was, and I think still is, the premier 100-mile run in Washington State. And it was a hard rock, and is a hard rock qualifier. And so it did stand out to me. Sorry, just need to make sure I don't need to run.
Yeah, please let us know.
But I'm sorry, I need to run. I hope Adam's on standby, and I hope this will be quick. But
no, go do your call. Yeah, do what you need to do.
All right, thank you. Sorry, do you want me to sign off or hang up?
Yeah, go ahead and sign off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're all good. Thanks, Rich. That's what happens, especially when you're on call with emergency services. Adam Huey, I believe, is standing by to join the show, but I think he's been working with an iPad. And for some reason, Google is just amazing and doesn't allow iPads to join Google Hangouts. So I have been emailing him throughout the show just to see if he can get onto a laptop and join us. Adam Huey is also a coordinator with the event, a really knowledgeable dude that has run the race, has paced the race, has worked with the race, and knows basically every in and out of Cascade Crest there is. So hopefully we can get him on in the next couple of minutes, but we are also approaching towards the end of the show. So I'll kind of wrap up a little bit about what he was saying, and just based off of stories I was told, and Linda in the chat room told me a little bit about it this weekend, but it was Rich's first 100, and it sounded like he didn't do much training for it. He seems to be the kind of guy that's like, I want an adventure. I really want to jump out there and just enjoy myself and go for some long miles with friends and see how far I can go. Linda paced him. I think he asked Linda to pace him fairly late in the game too, but he did it. He managed to complete it. I think it took him just under cutoffs, but he had a blast and milkshakes. I think that's kind of all I took out of the story when I heard it was Rich loves milkshakes. And now he's the race director. I'm really excited to know Rich and get to know him better, especially leading up to this race. He has been so extremely helpful and guiding in my preparation for this race, just keeping my knowledge up to date and answering questions, because this is my first 100. I'm terrified. I've talked to every person that I know pretty much who's run 100 before and asked for little pieces of advice. And it definitely will weigh on you. And I've been dealing with all sorts of anxiety and fears and worries, waking up in cold sweats. And did I train enough? Did I train too much? Did I train too hard? Am I eating right? I feel like I'm not losing the weight I need to lose, and the extra weight makes my knees more sore, all that stuff, all the little nitpicky things. But talking to Rich, it just kind of cools all the jets. And that's the kind of race director I'm really excited to work with and to run his race. Really, the reason I'm running it as well is because I grew up here, and I grew up miles from where the race takes place. And when I did my course preview a couple of weeks ago, I was running on trails that I had only ever skied, because during the snow season, it's a ski pass, and it was this most incredible feeling to run on trails that were below 15, 20 feet of snow that I would ski on top of when I was a kid. And it's this really kind of cool full circle for me to go back to these woods. And I'm seeing places I'd never seen before, yet lived there for years and years and years. I'm very excited about this race now. There's always going to be a little trepidation. Talking to people like Linda, Gary, and my friends up here in the Northwest who do run these trails regularly and have been a part of this race experience frequently, it has really helped. And all of your support too out there. Everyone who's been a regular viewer of the show and has been following this process for the last year, and the build up to this week, to this weekend. I can't thank you guys enough. There's a lot of people out there, Squamish 50 this weekend too, who knew about next weekend's race. And as I'm like cheering for them to kick ass during the 50 miler, like coming into an aid station, they're yelling at me like, you have an awesome race next week. And I'm like, focus on your own race. You don't want to fall. Come on, finish this thing. But it's really cool to have so much support. So I appreciate that, guys. I'm going to do everything I can out there. The weather may not be in our favor. I love rain, so I welcome it. And I know that the region welcomes it, but we'll deal with what we have to deal with. I think that's pretty much it. I want to preemptively thank the volunteers and the aid station captains and all those who are working to put this race on. I've met a number of them, but nowhere even near all of them. I've only met a handful of the people that put this race on. And if their awesomeness is any indication of the awesomeness of the race, we are all in incredibly good hands. And I'm really excited to take it on. 100 miles. Jesus Christ. So I'm going to kind of wrap up the show there. I'm really bummed that we had to lose Rich, but I totally understand that he's in the middle of an emergency. As an emergency responder, you got to do that. So thank you all for watching live. I'll stick around for the post show, and we can talk a little bit more about the race. And maybe if Linda's here, she can relay the story. I see some things talking to me. So I'll make sure to answer all these questions and this dialogue in the post show. I'm going to wrap up the main show now. And that'll be it. If you want to follow me this weekend, I am race bib number 122. And I believe the best way, I don't know if there's online tracking, because I haven't gone onto the website this weekend because I didn't have much Wi-Fi or cell. But I believe follow either my Twitter or Kim's Twitter as well. So at the Ginger Runner or at milelong_legs. She is my crew chief. She will be following me throughout the race, and most likely whenever there's signal dropping updates. I don't necessarily want to burden her. I think she's watching live from LA right now, but I don't want to burden her with that duty. But if she's not doing it, she'll have someone operating the Twitter and updating kind of what's going on. And I'm really excited, guys. This is one of those adventures. You asked me 5 years ago if I'd ever do it, and I would have said no, not in hell, no fucking way. How many more sleeps? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more sleeps. I had to do the math slow because my brain is mush. So 5 more sleeps. Really, really excited. Oh, yes. We have Huey. Oh my God, seriously, like we're just about to wrap up the show and look who joins. I'm so glad we got it to work. Adam Huey's going to join me for the post show, if that's cool.
That's cool.
Okay, cool. This is great. I'm super excited. Now I have a post-show partner in crime. Adam Huey is going to join me. So stick around. You don't want to miss the post-show. It's essentially going to be a whole new show. Very excited. So thank you everybody for tuning in to tonight's episode for the main version. Post-show is going to be completely different. So I'm super excited. We'll see you guys next week, every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Next Monday will be special because it'll be the post-race recap show where I talk all about Cascade Crest 100 and what went down out on the course. And hopefully I'll be wearing a brand new buckle because I have a leather belt that has none and it needs a buckle. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the post show. Stick around.
Powder.
Yes, dude. I'm so excited we got it to work an hour later. I'm guessing it was the iPad thing. Was the iPad the problem?
Let's see. My computer is too old to run the newest Safari, so that didn't work. The iPad, it wouldn't connect for some reason. Couldn't get it to go on the iPhone, and then my 14-year-old daughter figured out a way to do it on her what is this thing called? On her tiny tablet.
Oh my God. That is awesome.
At the very last second.
It's perfect timing, though. Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and your relationship with Cascade Crest, because we've been talking about you a little bit in the show, and now people can see the face.
All right. Well, I'm Adam Huey. I've run Cascade Crest 3 times. Let's see. I think I've finished 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in those 3 runnings. It's been a while since I've run it because I've started working for it. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've taken on all the sponsorship and all the food. I make all the soup for the race, procure all the vegetables and all the fruit, and I make sure everyone gets some cool stuff in their goodie bags. We've got really good swag, just gotta say.
Really? Good stuff. I should be excited.
Oh yeah. We've got Drymax. You'll find Drymax socks in your bags.
Nice.
We're going to be giving up a bunch of stuff at the pre-race meeting. I've got Jolbo sunglasses we're going to be giving out random. We've got some really awesome drop bags from our friend Kelly, who also is our volunteer coordinator. She's Josie and the Rhinos, her company, and she makes drop bags. And let's see, we've got Black Diamond stuff. We've got all sorts of swag. So I never knew how good our swag was till I went to some other races. Some other races, you end up getting a bag with just a bag of toilet paper and a note in it.
Like, good luck, have fun. Hopefully, you don't have to poop in the woods. Here you go.
Pretty much.
Well, I'm really excited, man. So you've run the race a couple of times, and now you're super connected to it. What do you think makes this race so special? I mean, I know you live in the Northwest. I know you have that attachment to it, but what do you think is so great about this race that we can convince people from around the world, even around the country, to come run Cascade Crest?
It is really the atmosphere. The Cascades are an amazing place to run. And they're so lush and they're so green, even at this time of year, even with a drought going on. It's moss and huge trees. The trails it's hard. You hear people talk about buttery single track. It's not buttery. It's the PCT is not buttery. It's beautiful. So you can get distracted from the agony by just looking around. But it's a race that's been quietly on everyone's list of a run that they want to do. I talked to a lot of the elite runners, and they're all, I really want to do Cascade Crest. So it just happens to compete with Wasatch, UTMB, Run Rabbit Run.
So it's some tough competition, but every year we get a handful of elites who come out and battle it out, and it was my first 100, and it's just such a great way to go. Oh,
I
my daughter's saying I need to turn the phone.
Oh
Uh,
yes, thank. I don't know who. I haven't met your daughter, but she is amazing. She not only got you connected to the show, but she also did the dirty work I didn't have to do, which was to tell you to turn the tablet sideways.
all right, all right. Am I there now? Am I right, or am I only a half a face?
I lost visual on. There you are. Yeah, you are good. Let's just make
All
sure.
right.
I think the internet's there. We go. Yeah, you're totally solid. Um, I I know that this race exists because of people like you, because of people like Gary, ultra runners that I know are hardcore, badass ultra runners that have done some really amazing races. I look up to you guys, and researching this race and knowing that it is really difficult, but yet it is also a very welcoming first 100. That's another reason why I signed up, is because I know that there are some badasses out there that made this their first 100 and have come back to run it multiple times because it is so special. So that's what I hope to do. I hope to run it, finish it, get the buckle, and come back because it is so awesome. And yeah, I think this weekend when I saw you up at Squamish, you were talking about how so many people refer to the PCT as buttery smooth single track, but you called it chunky peanut butter, which I think is accurate. Can't be confused by that. What do you think are going to be the biggest challenges I might face?
You know, I was talking to Rock Horton, who's on the board of Hard Rock, and I asked him point blank. I said, why are we still a qualifier? Why is Tahoe Rim has been taken off? Why is Cascade Crest? We don't have high altitude. And he said it's the last 30 miles. He said at the last 30 miles, you're on your own. In the part where it's the hardest, you've got to make it through on guts alone. And that is what makes it so that if someone finishes Cascade Crest, they have a chance of finishing Hard Rock. And so it really, once you're heading up the trail to No Name, after that, you just gotta hang on. And that's the biggest challenge. A lot of people make it to Hayak, and a lot of people really struggle in the last half of this race, but that's the beauty of it.
Is there a moment or an iconic spot in this course? I have a couple mental spots already that I know if I get there, that's a huge step in the right direction, and it's only 18 miles left, or you've seen those last 18 miles, you can get through it. Is there a mental spot for you that you've pinpointed as you get there, you're home free?
I always feel that Thorpe Mountain, you get to the lookout, and it's sort of all downhill from there. I mean, you can't drop out there anyway, so what you gonna do? You might as well just keep going. Uh, it's it's beautiful. Thorpe Mountain, you just take a breath and you look down and you're above the whole course and you look down at the lake, and depending on how fast you're going, if there's you can I hit it at night when I've done it, and I can look down at the lake and I can see headlamps, miles and miles and miles away, still working their way around the trail from hell. And that's just amazing to have that kind of an overlook. But yeah, once you start heading down from there, you've only got one major climb left, and then you're home free,
If
unless
you
you're
want to,
positive.
right? Yeah, exactly. If you guys want to see this lookout that he's talking about, Thorpe Mountain, I visited it on one of the training runs a couple of weeks ago. It's on the Instagram account. You can see it. There's a couple pictures of it up there. It's one of the most special viewpoints I've hit in a long time. Training a lot in Southern California, you do get some pretty epic viewpoints, and you climb really rugged SoCal mountains, and you can see for miles and miles. But for some reason, getting to the top of Thorpe Mountain was like unlike anything I've experienced in the last couple of years, because it is just so epic. You can see Mount Rainier off in the distance. You're how many 6,000? I guess above the lake. You're about 3,500, if not 3,800 feet above this beautiful alpine lake. I'm going to use that as a mental gauge as well. And Mineral Creek for me, if I can get to Mineral Creek, I know that I can just grind. It's a 7-mile, 3,000 plus foot climb out of Mineral Creek to this No Name Ridge that Adam was talking about. I know that if I can get to Mineral Creek, I can grind up that fire road. And that's like a mental thing for me, is just get through the fire road. And then once you're on No Name, have some fun and smile a lot, because it's so beautiful up there. You have run it 3 times. What was your best experience and what was your worst experience?
My best experience was the last time I ran it, because I was really hoping to get in about, I wanted to beat the sunrise. That was my goal. And so I wanted to finish it in about 19 and a half hours. And I actually got to No Name and I was way ahead of schedule. And I'm not a guy who looks at his watch much, but I knew the people working there, and they all said, we weren't expecting you. And so that set it. And then when I finished and I beat the sunrise, and I looked at the finish clock and it was 19:05, and I felt great. Some races you just feel horrible at the finish, and some races you're exhilarated. And so to have such a great time and to have it be where I felt great. The only bad part about that was my wife and kids were sleeping in the van, and my pacer had to wake them up.
Because you were so early.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That, and if you finish it, that early, there's nobody around. So there's just Rich and like a couple of volunteers. There's no glory in finishing the top 3 of a 100-miler.
Damn.
And the worst was probably the second time I ran it. It was after doing Hard Rock, and I got about right after No Name was when the wheels just came off, and I just had I felt like I had no marrow in my bones, and so I just really struggled to bring that one in, and I knew that if I was in peak condition, I could have finished a lot better, and that was kind of hard.
Yeah. Now, there's this notion with hundreds around the country and around the world that going sub 24, this idea of going sub 24 is this real special thing. In this race, I have been told by everybody that has run this race that is not a realistic goal unless you are an elite runner. I mean, can you attest to that? Is that true? I mean, you just mentioned you went 19:05, which is incredible just based off of previous year's times. That is amazing. Can you kind of describe what to expect as far as times, or like, is there a certain average that people look to go for, or what's their goal? Is it just to finish?
It seems like this race is just to finish. I mean, you don't get anything special for finishing under 24 hours. It's just a mental hitch that people kind of like to have. But we also have a late start. So we start at 10 in the morning. So if you've run 100-milers before that start at 6, it's hard to gauge. So, most of the runners will finish in the 30 to 33 hour range because it's a tough race. And I really, of most races I know, this is the one that's least caught up in finishing in 24 hours.
Right.
It's more people getting chased by the cutoff, but also people tend to stay ahead. We've got a pretty generous cutoff. So yeah,
32 hours, right? 32.
I think it is 32. Yeah. So yeah, people finish around 30. That's when we get the crush at the finish, because everyone's trying to stay ahead. But it's a trickle.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I was talking a little bit about it at the end of that show there, and just my level of nerves and anxiety and full on fear. They've gone through so many different stages over the last few months. Tell me that's normal for first 100 runner.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's
Oh,
good.
even for a, I was running my 1200 miler at Hard Rock the night before it. I was just a mess. And it's just emotionally, you're going into battle. You don't know why you're doing this to yourself. You try to talk yourself out of it, back into it, out of it, back into it. And, it's all the nerves getting to the start line and going. And mostly you got to remember to eat in the morning because a 10 o'clock start. Yeah, and we've got a great breakfast that we serve at the start of the race. There's pancakes, and take advantage of it.
I plan on it, and I plan on bringing my crew out and letting them do it as well. Finally, I didn't realize this until this weekend. Traveling up to Squamish, we stopped at a grocery store and we picked up some food, much of which was in the shape and form of delicious burritos. Talk to me about the Adam Huey Burrito Company. What is this? I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know that you made incredible food. Can people get this stuff?
Yes, the burritos are Globe Spun Gourmet burritos. We sell them from Bellingham down to Northern California. They are primarily organic beans and rice burritos, preservative-free tortillas, and most of the recipes are ones that I've come up with over the years. It's actually what got me into my first 100 miler. Was I got asked to provide burritos for White River, and I said, sure, why not? Feed hungry runners at the end. That's a great demo. And then McCoubry said, well, I'll give you a free entry. And I'd never run longer than a marathon, so I was like, who am I to say no to something free? So that got me into my first 50 miler, and since then we've done burritos at the end of Cascade Crest for a couple of years. Now we do more of a barbecue. And Globe Spun Gourmet is a sponsor for the race because I make all the soups, and I also bring out a certain amount of burritos for volunteers to nosh on while they're getting everything set up. The soup is going to be great. Made 33 gallons of soup for the race.
I can't imagine. That's amazing.
It's a good business to be in. It's fun. And making the soup, I know what runners need in a 100 miler. So I sneak extra olive oil and extra salt into the soup.
Yeah. What's next for Adam Huey? Because I know that you're a very seasoned, incredibly talented ultra runner with lots of finishes under your belt, really incredible hard races. What's next on your calendar?
Having just finished Squamish, that was brutal, and I'm nursing a pulled muscle that I pulled right before Hard Rock. So I'm planning on taking it easy for about a month. Really concentrate on getting this race done. I want to wander around the Wonderland Trail in 3 days, and I'll probably get into a couple of fall races. Probably run one of the rain shadow running events. Probably do Deception Pass, and it depends how I'm feeling. But I've sort of been eyeing a couple of other shorter races. I'd love to get out to Montana and do the Rut, but I think it's a little too late for that.
Yeah, just talking to Mike Foote this weekend. He's like, dude, you got to come run the Rut. And I'm like, the week after my first 100, I think I'm going to hold off. Or I think it's a couple weeks after Cascade. But I'm like, I'm going to wait because I've heard the Rut is pretty difficult. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's got altitude. So it's not just a really tough course, but you got to be acclimated.
Yeah, not really acclimated out here at sea level.
No.
Even Cascade Crest gets up there, with the peak of, I think it's 5,800 or something ish. Thorpe Mountain, I think, is the highest point.
It's not high enough to really affect people very much. I know personally, I don't feel it until about 8,000. So,
right.
And we'll see, because it also depends on the weather. They're saying it might rain, but who knows?
I feel like you get into Washington and they say it's going to be sunny all afternoon. You got to bring your umbrella with you anyways, because you never know. You don't know what the hell can happen here. They're saying rain for the weekend. That's what I'm reading. I'm reading a 50 to 60% chance per sip. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Who knows? Where can people find you online, Adam? Twitter. Where can people buy your burritos online or your food online? Give people the spiel. I want people to know more about Adam Huey. Find you.
All right, they cannot buy the burritos online. Short shelf life, no preservatives. They need to find them in their grocery stores. In Western Washington, we're all over the place. All the Safeways in Western Washington picked us up, and that's been great. We're in all the local natural food stores. We're in a lot of Whole Foods. We're in Whole Foods down in Northern California, and we're also scattered all over Portland and Eugene. As far as me, I've got a blog, which is Cascade Adam at Blogspot, and I tend to post just mostly race reports and whatnot. So I'll be writing something up about Squamish. I also just became an ambassador for Merrill Shoes because
Nice.
I've been loving the All Out Peak, which I've been racing in all summer, and they caught wind of the fact that I had run Hard Rock in them and just raved about the shoe. So they said, well, yeah, this guy loves our shoes. Maybe we should find out what he's about. So I'm going to be sort of doing some stuff with them that's exciting.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, all I tell them is just don't change the shoe. Just keep the shoe the same, and you'll have me for as long as you want me. So,
That is the most common problem that I find shoe manufacturers do is they come out with the shoe that everyone loves, and then all of a sudden they come out with a new version of it, and fucking something is different. And it's like, no, you ruined it. You ruined a perfectly good shoe.
yep.
That's excellent, dude. Congratulations on the ambassadorship. Hope that turns into some really lucrative, cool stuff for you. And again, if you're watching live, guys, this has been the post show. We managed to get Adam Huey to join us. Really like legendary trail runner, ultra runner. Linda Robbins in the chat room even calls him the Hunchback of Hard Rock, which I think is hilarious. But he's managed to finish Hard Rock, so he's kind of a badass. Thanks, Adam, for dropping by for a little bit. Next time I want to get you on for the full show, so we can really dig deep into the Adam Huey persona and more history and stuff like that.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, good luck this weekend. I'll see you up there all weekend long, and I hope you stay comfortable and just enjoy it.
We got Rich. Rich is back. What's up, dude?
What up?
This has been the best show because just as I'm about to wrap the main show, Rich, Adam jumps on. Adam appeared out of nowhere, like just as I was wrapping after you had to go on your call. And then just as I'm about wrapping with Adam, Rich is back. I am wrapping up the show right now because I actually have to go get dinner. I appreciate all of you who tuned in live tonight to talk to both Rich, the race director of Cascade Crest 100, and Adam Huey, extraordinaire. What is your title with Cascade, Adam? That's what I was wondering. What is the title?
I am Swagmaster Deluxe.
It is Swagmaster.
I'll take it. That's an excellent title. So we got the race director and the Swagmaster Deluxe. Make sure you follow these guys on social media, and again for this weekend, follow both at the Ginger Runner and at milelong_legs for updates of my progress. And I'm going to be following Adam's advice and probably picking his brain the morning of the race too for some last minute advice and some soup. I'll just be drinking soup all morning. And Rich will be out there as well, and I'll be high-fiving him. If you can put a milkshake down for a second, you never know. Thanks no milkshakes or anything. Thanks for tuning in live, everybody. We'll see you next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, for a recap of what happens at Cascade Crest 100 with the bright, shiny belt buckle to show off. It's going to happen. Okay, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.